So what's cool about that is it's really minimal, it's simple, it's sparse, but it really works. It's the epitome of a great rock and roller. Says everything you need for it to say. It's right locked in there with that B chord, like I was saying. If you know a B bar chord at the 7th fret, or B7, it's right in that pocket. You don't have to go anywhere. You can just play that little box position there and have yourself a ball. So you don't have to travel down to these frets way down low. You don't have to go way up high. Just stay right there at the 7th fret and you're doing great Chuck Berry rock licks. Alright, so early rock and roll from the 1950s. Chuck Berry, Round and Round. And Keith Richards did a great version, of course, with the Stones. Last but not least for our series on intervals, I'd like to talk about an interval called the 10th. The 10th was used a lot in music throughout history. Bach used it quite a bit. He had a lot of tenths going on. If you listen to his lute suites, you listen to just about any of his music, especially when it's transcribed for guitar, you're going to hear a lot of this interval called the 10th. Very churchy, and Bach did write a lot of music for the church. That was his main gig. And so in order to get paid, Bach wrote a lot of music that had that kind of thirds and sixths and a little bit of tenths in it, because that was the sound of the time. That was the sound of what was going on in the Protestant church and their hymns. I think that he was a Lutheran, as far as I know, a Protestant sect called Lutheran, and that was common in Germany at the time. So you're going to hear lots and lots of those tenths in Bach's music. You hear it in Paul McCartney's Blackbird, of course. Lots of tenths. You have major tenths, minor tenths, minor tenth, major tenth, between the note G and B. Now the reason it's called a tenth is because it is bigger than a third. If it were just a third from G to B, it would be G, A, B. Only 3 notes up, but this is a whole octave higher than that. So you have G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. 10 notes away. Big jump there. You also hear tenths a lot in ragtime, like Scott Joplin and stuff like that from the turn of the century, the early 1900s. So tenths are a beautiful sound. We love them. But let's learn a lick that uses tenths. This is a very unusual one. It has nothing to do with any of the music that I've talked about previously in this series. This is Steely Dan's King of the World, one of my favorite bands in the whole world, Steely Dan. And this album that Countdown to Ecstasy, that King of the World came from, one of the most influential albums in my life. It definitely changed my world when I heard the songs on that. A lot of you know My Old School and Bodhisattva and some of the great, great songs on that album, Countdown to Ecstasy. But this one, King of the World, might be a little underrated. You might not have heard this one, but I'll play it for you just to help you get familiar with it. So that was actually a bass. They had the bass play in tenths, which is physically kind of difficult. I'm not sure who the player was. Might have been Chuck Rainey or Willie Weeks or one of those great session bass players they used back then. Probably Chuck Rainey. But yeah, he took the low E string on his bass. Well, they only have one E string, but the E string on his bass and the G string, and he played that dyad way stretched out. This is difficult on the bass, but he pulled it off just fine. So it's a bass going. And that kind of outlines the chords C, D, and E. If you played those chords, you can tell that that's what it's outlining. And then the guitar player, whichever one it was, Denny Diaz or Walter Becker, one of the guitar players, Jeff Baxter on this record, played this little cool little hammer-on pull-off lick. in the key of E. I'll show you that real quick. It's 3rd string, 9th fret, hammered onto the 3rd string, 11th fret, 2nd string, 9th fret, hammered onto 2nd string, 10th fret, pulled back off to the 9th fret, and then 3rd string, 11th fret, pulled off to the 9th, and finally the D string, 11th fret, pulled off to the 9th. Just out of a little E major scale. Nice little box to learn if you're soloing in the key of E major and you need some notes to play and some ideas. That 9th fret area is a fruitful place to look for licks. Real favorite for Dickie Betts of the Allman Brothers. When he was in the key of E, he would oftentimes use that 9th fret area. Alright, Guitar-Laylians, there's 3 classic licks from 3 very diverse sources. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully you're learning something from this little series. We'll get on to some new subject next time. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, be sure to click like, be sure to click that notify bell way up top there that lets you know when I come out with a new one of these, usually about once a week or so. And be sure to check out my Patreon, where you're going to find tabs of every single thing we talked about today and in the other videos. Okay, Guitar-Laylians, you take care, and I will catch you next time. Bye-bye.